I'm Kate Battiato, and I'm the program's statewide administrator and the vice president of workforce development for the Wisconsin Healthcare Association. With me today is Taylor Larson and Luke Vandermeer, both of whom contribute to our outreach team here at the program. Taylor also serves as WHCA's Director of Administration and Association Services, and Luke is studying to get his master's degree in public health at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Taylor and Luke will also be monitoring the Q&A box as we go along, so please feel free to post any questions that you might think of as we go along into the Q&A box. We'll share any questions that would apply widely to the group as we go along, but we won't share names. And thank you to Taylor and Luke for your help today. So you can learn more about everything that we'll be talking about today in our new employer guide. We've added that link to the chat. So here's our overview. Before we dive into all what's to come, we just wanted to get a sense of the audience's experience level with the program. So you'll see the poll pop up. So thank you for your responses. It helps us tailor the content that we provide to the audience. So we're seeing a lot of folks who have some experience, but not a lot. Looks like about 60% have some experience. About 20% have a lot of experience. So most of us have worked with the program before. We've got some folks who've taken some steps to get started, but haven't fully participated. And about 20% of the audience here is aware of the program, but hasn't participated yet. So we've got a good mix of everybody here. Thank you all so much for being here. We hope that we can cover all your questions and meet everybody's experience level as we go along. So again, I encourage you to post any questions that you might have to the chat, or I'm sorry, to the Q&A box, and we'll make sure to get those questions answered for you. All right, so moving right along here to our next slide, we wanted to give a quick overview of the program. So WisCaregiver Careers is a workforce development program designed to address the CNA shortage in Wisconsin nursing homes by providing free CNA training, free certification testing, and $500 bonuses. The program seeks to encourage new workers to enter the field of caregiving by lowering the costs of becoming a CNA and by making CNA training more readily accessible. We feature an employment first program design in which participants are hired first by the employer and are then trained under an in-house training program or through a third-party provider under an arrangement that is coordinated and paid for by the employer. So employers lead the way with the training, hence why we call the Hallmark program strategy employer-led training. We're very happy to share our program stats with you to help quantify the impact we've been making on the CNA shortage. The numbers you see here are the outcomes we've achieved in our most recent round of funding, which was rolled out in July of 2022. We've been very pleased with the number of people we've been able to reach in about 16 months. The top number that you see here, which is just shy of 10,000, is a measure of our media campaign's effectiveness. Every registration represents an individual who was directed to our website and who then provided their contact information to learn more about the opportunities our employers have to offer. The next three numbers reflect all the hard work that our employers have been doing. So thank you all for your work on this. The training number that you see here reflects participants who have completed training. So there's still plenty more in the pipeline currently that I'm sure we'll see that number continue to rise. The one below that reflects those who have achieved certification. And then the final one are those who have remained employed for at least 6 months. In addition to our goals of adding more CNAs to the Wisconsin registry, we also have a number of goals designed to support nursing home recruitment and staffing best practices. Our mentorship model provides a pre-assembled kit to our employers which you can use to implement a nursing home specific onboarding program that's been proven to dramatically increase retention. We also provide customized recruiting support to any employers who contact us. We can help you with tools such as job template or template job announcements, or with relationship building within your community schools or employment services providers. Our hope is that by providing a low-risk environment for our employers to experience these strategies, you can implement these best practices long-term in a way that works for your particular circumstances and needs. We hope that this will put nursing home recruitment and retention efforts on more even footing with the sophisticated competition in the healthcare labor market and make a positive long-term impact on the CNA shortage in Wisconsin nursing homes. So that was a lot of info. I hope you were able to take that in. Do we have any questions before we move on to what we cover and like the financial side of things? So like I mentioned, we provide free CNA training and certification testing and $500 bonuses. We do this on a reimbursement basis. So the employers incur the expenses on the front end, and then upon certification, we send a $1,000 check, which is composed of a $700 flat rate training reimbursement plus a $300 employer success bonus. One thing I do like to point out there is that we can only reimburse trainees who become certified. So there is a level of risk that the employers have to take on, and just wanted you all to be mindful of that. It just means that you want to be, thoughtful in who you are enrolling in the training, especially if you have a per trainee cost, because again, we can only reimburse the ones who become certified. We also provide free certification exams. We do that through our TMU system, which I'll be going through today in detail. By completing that reimbursement steps that we're going to go through, the trainees' fees for testing will be waived automatically. They won't even be asked to pay for their test. 6 months after the start of training or after the date of hire, we will reimburse you $500 for the trainees retention bonus. And then if you opted for the mentorship program, the mentor also gets a $500 bonus when their trainee makes it to that 6-month retention point. So there's a lot of nice financial incentives built into that mentorship model. Your mentors can have up to 2 mentees at a time. So that could be a $1,000 bonus in their pocket every 6 months. And that makes it a really nice strategy for retention of our workforce. It also elevates the mentor to a higher status within the community, which leads to better job satisfaction and retention for that reason as well. So we can't promote that mentorship program strongly enough to you. I really hope you take advantage of it. We've got webinar recordings about how to implement that model program on our employer webpage. Also, I'll mention that today's webinar is being recorded and will be posted on that web page for employers. It is password protected, so if you need the password, just email us and we'll send it to you. And you can get to that employer page from WisCaregiver.com CNA page, and then at the top of the screen, there's a link that says employers page for employers. Okay, so moving right along, let's dive into our content for today. So today we're going to be talking about our updated employer guide, our reimbursements for retroactive trainees, and our recertification policy. So we'll start with the updated employer guide, and then it'll feed into the rest as we go along. So we just want to make a reminder to update your bookmarks to the link that you see on the screen here. The link is also in the chat. And you'll know that you are looking at the most recent copy of the guide if you see the version number, which is number 3, published September 2023 at the bottom of the table of contents, which you'll see in that little diagram there too. Okay, so moving right along to our next slide. Here we go. One of the main reasons we wanted to update our employer guide is because we've updated our TMU reimbursement system. We're really excited about the fact that we added a date of hire field. I know that adding a new field into a computer system may not seem all that exciting to you all, but for us, it was a really big deal because it greatly improves our ability to track 6-month job retention, and it makes our retroactive reimbursement policy possible. Before we added this field, 6-month retention was measured from the first day of training, which can be problematic for any employers who retroactively reimburse trainees for their training and testing costs after hire. Now, while we are primarily an employment first program, we strive to provide as much flexibility as possible to our employers. We know that you all have a lot going on, and a one-size-fits-all approach is not entirely helpful, especially for facilities that have to comply with corporate or governmental hiring reimbursement policies. So the new content that we'll be going over here is highlighted on page 9 of your employer guide, but we'll be showing you screenshots as we go along, so you'll be able to know what to expect. One thing that I think you'll notice as we move through this content is how our reimbursement system is set up assuming the employment first model. It'll kind of help explain why we have to have certain special handling steps for our less common reimbursement scenarios. We'll walk you through a couple of those scenarios in addition to the regular process, which the regular process, we mean cases that conform to the employment first model. One common thread between all of these different scenarios is you'll notice that we really want to work with our employers to fit the system to your needs. So I hope that makes sense of why some of this stuff is a little idiosyncratic, but it's all to help be flexible for your particular circumstances. So as we move forward, I want to make sure to mention that our reimbursement process starts on the trainee side, okay? So their process has not changed. And you can find their trainee instructions in Appendix D of your employer guide. From here, with our little demo, we're going to assume that the trainee has done their steps and that we're starting things now on the employer side. So your steps start off plain and simple with logging into your facility's TMU account. Right? If you do not know who your facility's TMU contact is, please reach out to Miranda at Headmaster and she can get you squared away. She can update if it's out of date, let you know who's listed there, get you help you need. Once you're logged into TMU, you go to the employment tab. There are 2 places that you can click to get there, which are outlined in red here. So either at the top there or at the white rectangle to the right of your screen. So once you're into that employment screen, you'll notice there are 2 white rectangles. Okay, the one on the top is for the federal registry renewals, and the one on the bottom is for WisCaregiver careers. When we built the system, our aim was to use a system our employers were already familiar with. So for anyone on the call that has done the federal renewals, these steps are going to look very familiar to you. So the next step is to click verify for any students that you see are pending in the employment funding section of the screen. So hopefully that's pretty easy so far. Are there any questions before we keep moving? Just want to check in with everybody. So far, so good. Okay. So then moving right along to the next screen. Here, let me just double check here that we don't have any Q&A. Okay, I'm just going to take a look at the Q&A box here. So one question is, if we are participating in a grant-funded CNA program with a technical school and paying for the students to attend, are we still able to utilize WisCaregiver program? So we would not be able to provide the $700 training reimbursement to you. We could try to work with you to get the coverage for the test if the grant-funded program does not cover the test, and can work with you from there. So yes, please feel free to reach out to us. We would love to help you make the program work for your particular situation. Next question is, does the employer get reimbursed for all 3 attempts at the exam? If you're working retroactively, like, so if you've already paid for 3 exam attempts, we can reimburse you. But if you follow these steps that we're going through right now before the trainee schedules their test, the trainee won't even be charged for their test. It bypasses the payment screen entirely. So you won't have to worry about paying for the test or reimbursing the test to the trainee. But you're right, they do get 3 attempts at the exam. Another question about current employees. We have a section here, like we're going to cover that particular scenario. So hopefully that'll cover the question that you have. And then the question here says, when do you input the employer verification? When you hire or when they sign up for the classes? The answer there is you can input the employer verification as soon as the trainee's TMU account gets created and their status in the TMU system is marked to having the class being passed. So they have to complete the training program successfully and the trainer has to mark their account as passed, like they passed the class, and then once that status goes to passed, the ability for the employee, the trainee, to initiate their reimbursement steps is turned on. But that's when it's triggered in the system. They won't be able to do it until they've passed the class. All righty. Let's keep moving here. All right. Okay, so we're looking at the regular process. So regular process, again, we mentioned this, but I just want to make sure everybody is following me, is where the trainee was hired shortly before or during training. So if you've got a trainee in that situation, you just need to fill in the date of hire. You have to update the status to approved and click the I verify statement. Then you hit complete verification, that purple button at the bottom there, to submit it. You do not need to change the funding type. The system will update that automatically. And that's it. You are totally done with your steps. Once the trainee becomes certified, they will appear on our reimbursement report, and our payment processor will reach out to you to set up your payment account. They will ask you for a W-9 form, but they'll do so only once. After you submit the W-9 form to them, they will set up a payment account for you on our side, and then the reimbursements will come to you automatically thereafter. You can select having it be an electronic funds transfer, or you can have a paper check, and you just specify that to them as they get your account set up. All right, so moving right along to our existing employees. So if you have a existing employee who wants to upskill to the CNA level, so somebody who's working in dietary who dreams of becoming a nurse, or someone in housekeeping that would like to move up, the thing that you do differently in the reimbursement system is that you input their first day of training in the date box so that their retention is measured from when they start becoming a CNA and not from when they started in their uncertified role. So really it's the only difference for existing employees. You just have to put in their first day of training instead of their first day of hire. And by the way, I just wanted to mention while we're in this slide that cross-training your team with WisCaregiver Careers funding is a great way to get the most out of the program. It helps build resiliency in your staffing and also flexibility. And then it can also be better for both the employees and the residents. So I'm been working with a facility who's been doing this type of cross-training amongst their staff, where they've cross-trained the admissions team, the social services team, anybody who might come into contact with a resident throughout the day. They've cross-trained as a CNA, so that the staff is never in the position of having a resident ask them for help and then having to tell them, sorry, I can't help you with that. And then on the resident side, they don't get the experience of asking for help and getting the answer of, no, I can't help you. So it's a great strategy. It's definitely something that we would recommend you give a try, to again help build that resiliency and flexibility into your staffing. Okay, so moving right along to our retroactive reimbursements. So retroactive reimbursements can come about because your facility has missed a few reimbursements, like sporadically here and there, or because your facility is just now learning about the program and you haven't submitted a single reimbursement yet. And it can also cover all the different situations in between. So you would use this process you would also use this process if you hired a CNA who recently became certified and then reimbursed them for all their training and testing expenses. We'll get into more details on retroactive reimbursement in just a few minutes, but here I wanted to point out what to keep an eye on when you actually complete the reimbursement steps. So you'll see the same screen as before. This should all look familiar, what we saw in the last few screens here. The only thing that is different is that you might notice that the I verify statement at the bottom says that the person currently works at the facility, when that might not be the case, especially if you're getting caught up on reimbursements that you've missed from a while back. So even if the trainee no longer works at the facility, you should still click the I verify statement. I know that that is counterintuitive, but this is an example of where we're adapting the system to accommodate employer flexibilities. I definitely have a wish list of upgrades, and believe me that all of these idiosyncrasies that we just went over are on that wish list. We do appreciate your understanding as we continually develop and improve the program. All right, so I'm going to pause there and go back to my Q&A box, see if there's anything. So the question that we received was, so current employees that have been with us more than 6 months would be eligible as soon as they certify. I think what the question is asking is how the 6-month retention bonus plays out for current employees. The 6-month retention bonus for those folks gets triggered 6 months from the day of hire. Or I'm sorry, 6 months from the first day of training. That is how existing employees' retention is measured. So when they would get certified is not particularly part of that equation. It's measured from the first day of training. So hopefully that answers the question. If it doesn't, please feel free to type it, some clarification in the chat, the Q&A box, and we'll make sure to address that again. All right. So moving back to our retroactive reimbursement policy. So we talked about, where to click, but wanted to also address like the underlying logic to the policy, and make sure that everybody kind of understands how to go about doing it. So we have 4 conditions that we laid out that need to be met. All 4 of them need to be met in order for us to be able to process a retroactive reimbursement. So first and foremost, the most important part of our program is free training, free certification testing. So we can't reimburse you unless the employer has covered the cost of training, either by paying upfront, by reimbursing, or by paying upfront, or by reimbursing the nurse aides costs for training and testing. The second one is it has to be within our grant timeline. So our grant contract was signed on April 4th, 2022. And so that is the beginning deadline or beginning point in time of when we can reimburse. So as long as they were in training on or after that April 4th date, we can reimburse you. Of course, we can't reimburse people more than once. So if they were previously reimbursed by another employer, we can't. That's never happened thus far, but we just wanted to make sure that we put it out there. We can only reimburse trainees once. And then finally, I want to talk about deadlines. So our grant contract closes in April of 2024, and we have to process all retroactive reimbursements well before that date to ensure that we comply with the grant timelines. So we're going to ask you to submit all of your retroactive reimbursements by a courtesy deadline of December 31st, 2023. And then that total drop dead date deadline to submit them will be March 4th of 2024. We really do appreciate you getting us all of your information as soon as possible, because we just don't want to have a huge flood of them at the end that we then may not be able to process in time for the deadline. So the closer you wait to the deadline, the more risky it is that we either won't have enough time to process it in time for the deadline, or we could run out of funding. So I just really encourage you all to make this a priority now and get us the information that we need to process it so we can get you your money, because we don't want to leave any money on the table from this grant. That's our goal, to spend it all. So then let's get into the actual process. All right, so you've determined that your trainee meets all of those 4 conditions. You're ready to move forward. So the process that you'll follow depends on the employment status of the trainee. All right, if the trainee still works for you at the facility, then the good news is you just follow the regular process. You don't have to do any special handling. You just follow the process as we've laid it out already. If the trainee no longer works at the facility, then we'll have to follow the retroactive reimbursement process. Okay, so now we'll delve into it. Any questions so far? Just double check. Q&A, I see one. Question about having the PowerPoint. We will post it to our employer webpage. So make sure to check there. Question on when the grant ends. It does end in April 2024. I don't think it's actually the 4th, but close to that date. The good news is on that, though, is that we also were awarded state funding through the state budget process. So the program will continue on after the end of that, the current grant. It just cannot cover expenses that the program incurred during this round of funding. So that's why it's so important to get those retroactive reimbursements submitted as soon as you can. All right, I think that covers it for now. We'll get into the process here. So on to here we are. Okay. So the first thing you need to do is gather up the documentation, which will demonstrate to us and to our grant overseers that the conditions of the retroactive reimbursement were met. So we need to know their name. We also need to know their facility's name. And so if it's not readily apparent what the facility is, like if you're covering several facilities for a corporate entity, please make sure that you specify which building they worked at so that we can put the information through into TMU. We need to see that the trainee incurred no out-of-pocket costs for training and testing. So we ask for proof of payment. And then we ask for proof of employment. Under the regular system, the trainee is in there selecting the employer. So that's the proof of employment that we collect and under the normal system. So under our retroactive reimbursement process, we need to see that, yes, this person did work there. So we collect that proof of employment, and then finally proof of certification. That can be as simple as hopping on TMU and typing the person's name in and printing a PDF of the results page showing that they're certified. So for employers without proof of payment for training, there is a section in the policy which will allow you to provide an attestation instead of a proof of purchase. This would typically apply for facilities that have in-house training programs, that there is no per student cost or payment made. So if you fall into that category, just make sure to review that section of the policy and let us know if you have any questions. Okay, moving right along. So after that, we'll review all the documentation, make sure everything's in order. We send the information to headmaster. They will launch the employment verification from their end. And then your facility's TMU representative will receive the employment verification request to approve. That approval is probably the trickiest thing about this whole retroactive reimbursement process. So remember when I showed you the slide on where to click? The verify statement says they currently work there. So the person who's doing this retroactive reimbursement needs to be aware that this is in fact a retroactive and that they should ignore that word currently and click that box in order to submit the reimbursement request. So hit approve, even though it's a little confusing with the wording. And then after that, your $1,000 training reimbursement and employer success bonus will be processed within the next 1 to 2 weeks. So if your account's already been set up, it'll just come to you automatically. If it has not been set up yet, our payment processing firm, which is Baker Tilly, will reach out to you for that W-9 to set up your account. Okay, on to our last step, which is employment retention. So for these retros, depending on how old the retroactive reimbursement is, you might get the job retention prompt shortly after completing the training reimbursement verification. So again, just keep an eye out for that. If the date of hire that you input into that first screen is more than 6 months ago, you're going to get this employment retention prompt right away. Otherwise, it'll just come to you 6 months from the date of hire that you provided. If in the case of a retro, the trainee did not receive a $500 bonus for whatever reason, you should select no, they did not achieve retention in the employment retention prompt. This is because we want to make sure that we're not sending you bonus reimbursement for bonuses that weren't paid. So again, if they weren't paid a bonus, say no. If they were paid a bonus and achieve 6-month retention, hit yes. And if they didn't achieve 6-month retention, clearly hit no, deny. So any questions on that? I know it's a little bit idiosyncratic there. Okay, I see some questions here. So first question is, if the employee fails the exams and does not obtain the certification, would the employer still get reimbursement? The answer to that is no, we can only reimburse certified trainees. However, they do get 3 attempts at the exam. So if they were not successful on their first go, I would just recommend trying to work with them to support them to get that certification to pass that exam. Again, in working with different employers, I've had detailed conversations with employers that have spent that extra effort with that trainee to get them to that point of certification. And it's really paid dividends to them in terms of employee loyalty. You're really demonstrating that you're willing to invest in them as a person and care about their success, which then comes back to you in loyalty. So again, I just really recommend and want to support that type of intervention there. So the next one says, what happens if you miss the retention prompt? I believe it just stays in your employment funding box in TMU in your employer or employment screen until you approve it. I think it also will prompt you. You'll get like a prompt from TMU on a weekly basis until the retention is verified one way or another, until that retention is completed. So yeah, so hopefully you won't miss the prompt. If you feel like you should see it and you're not seeing it, please feel free to reach out to us. We're always happy to troubleshoot that sort of any sort of strange situation. Okay, so the next one is so the 6-month verification needs to be done by the employer, and they also have to click no bonus was received to trigger a bonus. No, we're only talking about retroactive reimbursements. So in this situation that we're talking about, the employee no longer works at the facility. And so if they left employment before, so say they hit that 6-month retention point and they quit a week after they hit the 6-month retention point and they left before getting their retention bonus, you should deny that employment retention verification, because we don't want to send you a $500 reimbursement for a bonus that wasn't paid and that you can't pay because they're gone. So hopefully that helps. If that doesn't, under normal circumstances with a trainee that's going through the process, in a normal employment first process, then you would just click the verification that corresponds to their employment outcome. If they made it to 6 months and you paid the $500 bonus, click yes. We then reimburse you for that that cost that you've seen. Okay. Okay. All right, so moving right along here. Let's see. All right, so let's dive into our recertification policy. So the first thing to know about for our next slide, the first thing to know about is that it's really important to coordinate with the DHS DQA team for any trainee that was previously certified and then just needs to take the exam again in order to get certified. I'm definitely not the expert when it comes to like individual scenarios. I understand it fits into kind of 3 major buckets of previously certified in Wisconsin or previously certified in another state or currently certified in another state. So my first recommendation is to reach out to DHS to get guidance on the individual circumstance that your recertification scenario falls into. All right. And the email to reach out to them is on the screen. That is the nurse aid training competency section. All right. So our general policy is that any trainee who has been previously certified and whose certification has lapsed are eligible to participate in WisCaregivers. The program covers the exam and the $300 success bonus, but we do not provide the $700 training reimbursement. And then our retention and mentor bonuses are administered just like normal, according to our normal standard operating procedures. So that's pretty much it with the recertification policy. Again, it's detailed in your employer guide. and happy to address any questions that you all might have. Okay. Okay. Um, we have a question about how the retention bonus gets paid to the new CNA and their mentor. So I think what we should do first is go over like the normal process because what we went over today is the process for retroactive reimbursements. So let me find, we have, okay, Taylor, if you wouldn't mind moving the slideshow to number 43, we can show the steps um, that you would follow for a regular situation. There we go. Okay, so when your trainee hits 6 months from their date of hire, your TMU representative will receive a prompt similar to what you see on the screen here. Um, you just hit confirm employment, okay? And then this is what it looks like once you do that. Make it a little bigger on my end. So the employer's name and the employee's name is automatically filled. And then there are two check mark boxes, the employment attestation and the mentor attestation. Okay. Um, if they had a mentor, you click that box and then you provide the mentor's name. We ask for the mentor's name because that's how we track compliance with our policy that the mentor wouldn't have more than two mentees at any given time. And then you hit that purple button to submit it. If they did not reach 6 months or they did not have a mentor assigned, you just don't click those boxes and you click the white box that says no. No, this person does not work here. Okay. So that's why it's confusing in the retroactive reimbursement scenario, because they're clicking, yes, this person still works here. But we're dealing with a case that happened potentially 6 months ago. So the main thing you have to understand is that if they hit the 6 month mark and were given a bonus, you're going to follow the steps as shown right here on the screen. But if they either didn't hit 6 months or weren't paid a bonus, then you're going to click no. Because by clicking the employment attestation box and the mentor box, that is what triggers the automatic payment on our end. So that's why we don't want you clicking that if they didn't meet or if they didn't get a 6 month bonus. All right, let me go back to our Q&A box here. Regarding the copy of the slides, yes, we will be making those available. And then So Carol, thanks for the question about the student trained in Minnesota and then coming over to Wisconsin. I don't want to delve into that because that is the DHS DQA team's area of expertise. And I don't want to give the wrong answer. So my recommendation on that question, so anything specific about a individual trainee who tested somewhere else or trained somewhere else and then wants to come over to test here in Wisconsin, I would direct to DQA. The funding side of things stays the same. So if you paid for their training, you are eligible to get reimbursed for that regardless if they got trained in Wisconsin or Minnesota, as long as it um ends up being certified in Wisconsin, that is really the trigger. And the fact that you paid for the training. If you didn't pay for the training, then we don't provide the training reimbursement. Okay. Okay. So somebody had a question about how do you get access to the TMU tracking system? All right. The folks who run TMU, the company is called Headmaster, and their state of Wisconsin representative is named Miranda. And so, if you're not sure how to get into TMU, then you would just reach out to Miranda at Headmaster, and she can let you know who's your facility's TMU representative that they have on record. And then if that person is not current, she can get it updated for you. Taylor, if you could put Miranda's email address in the chat, then everybody's got it if you need help with that. Okay, so I've got one question that says, do we have to sign up to participate, or are all facilities signed up automatically? I get notification that someone's in my area is interested. How do I continue from there? So you do have to sign up to participate. Um, the if you are receiving those notifications, that means that your facility is enrolled and your name is listed as either the primary or secondary contact for your building. So that's a good sign. When you get those notifications, that is a candidate lead that you can act on according to your normal recruiting and hiring practices. So, for instance, you get the email that says, Taylor here is interested in becoming a CNA. Here's her email, her phone number, and a little customized message that she left in her registration form. You would then, as quickly as you can, because with today's really competitive hiring market, people are moving really fast. So I would just like to say that like time truly is of the essence when you get those emails. Like, don't wait even until the next day to respond. Like, if you can respond within the hour of receiving it, you have much higher likelihood of reeling in that person as a new hire. So how you continue from there is, again, you reach out to the person, you might call them or email them saying, we'd love to hire you on as one of our CNA trainees. Here is the application link. Please move forward. Or you could even move them directly into a phone screen instead of moving them to the application stage, and ask those really important questions that they would otherwise answer in an application. Just ask it over the phone. Again, that's just a strategy to try to streamline the hiring process, to help people move through it as quickly as you can. One story I always like to share regarding like how quickly you have to move in today's recruiting market is UPS, which hires a ton of people, especially people who are able-bodied, people that we might be competing against or competing for. UPS has streamlined its hiring process such that they can make an offer of employment from based on from 1 hour of application to job offer. They can move people through the process that quickly. So that's the type of competition that we're up against. And so we just have to be really mindful of how fast people move. So hopefully that helps the question. If that didn't fully cover it, please feel free to type it back in. Next question is, their date of hire for, okay, the question is their date of hire the date they started CNA training or the date they passed their exams and officially became a CNA? So this one, Taylor, if we can move back to slide 12, slide 12. Most of the time, you're just inputting the individual's date of hire, okay? If the person was an existing employee, like somebody who worked in a different department for a period of time and then started training, you want to put in their first day of training. Otherwise, you're always just inputting their date of hire. So that's just one of those unique reimbursement scenarios. Okay. And then the next question is, and the payment goes to who? The payment goes to the facility. So in order to get reimbursed from us, you have to reimburse the trainees' costs or cover them from the start. But the program, we reimburse you. So all the money comes from us to you in a reimbursement basis. So one person is saying, we have not gotten any reimbursements for new CNAs or mentors. That leads me to believe that your CNAs and mentors haven't been inputted into our tracking system. So you may be looking at quite a few retroactive reimbursements depending on the volume of training that you do. And if that's the case, I really do recommend you reach out to us so that we can help you get squared away, make sure you have everything that you need. Okay. One question is, can you only have one TMU contact per facility? I think so. Miranda at Headmaster would be able to tell you better. So I would recommend reaching out to her. Her email's in the chat. I think so. Is there a way to get a list of where the CNA classes are or are coming up? Yeah, we don't have like every program in the state, but we do work with a number of CNA training providers, some of whom will proactively reach out to us with open like slots in a class that they're trying to start. And so when we get those emails from the training providers, we will do like an email blast to the employers near that location saying like, hey, there are these open slots. If you've got somebody, go for it. If you need help connecting with a training provider, we would be happy to help you. So give us a call and we can help you with that. So yeah, there's a lot of different options to choose from. You know, you've got your tech college system, you've got private programs, you've got private colleges, and then of course in-house is always an option. So we can advise you on all of those different options, including starting your own in-house training program. One thing I always want to make sure to mention is that you do not need an in-house training program in order to participate in WisCaregiver careers. We will reimburse you for training that occurs at any DHS approved nurse aid training program. Okay. Yes. Okay, so Kalinda, if you could send us an email after this, Taylor, would you mind please putting it on the slide that has the contact info on it? That'll like, it's like info@wiscaregivercna.com. And then we also have a toll-free number that you can give us a call at, and we'd be happy to help you get connected with that. Okay. So, Carlin, I just wanted to make sure that you understand that, like, I don't know exactly the answer to your question, but they have to be, like, the facility has to be a skilled nursing facility. So if the facility is considered a skilled nursing facility, then you'd be eligible, but the funding is only limited to nursing homes. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So like individuals with intellectual disability type, like a immediate care facility or intermediate care facility, it wouldn't count as a SNF. So hopefully that helps. Okay. I don't see any open questions now. Let me see. Anybody else? Um, Last piece of advice is make sure to update those bookmarks with our new um, with our new URL. And please feel free to reach out to us anytime. We hope that this information was helpful to you all. And again, thank you for the amazing work that you're all doing with solving this CNA shortage in our state.